Joining me now from Kiev is Emmanuelle Chaze. Emmanuelle, what more can you tell us about this attack on the Kerch Bridge?
Well, there have been reactions here in Kiev, first by the spokesperson of the intelligence, who said, well, they wouldn't comment on the attack, but that Kirilo Budanov, the head of the intelligence, had said in the past that this infrastructure was, in his opinion, unnecessary. There's also Mikhailo Podolyak from the presidential office, who tweeted seemingly referring to the Kerch Bridge that such illegal infrastructures were bound to be short-lived. So we had those reactions. We also had, interestingly, the spokesperson of the Southern Command of the Ukrainian Army, Natalia Humeniuk, saying that Russian claims that Ukraine tried to destroy the bridge were typical of Moscow to try to discredit Ukraine and to try and find a pretext not to renew the grain deal which we just mentioned. So there's no admission on the Ukrainian side that it indeed provoked those explosions which damaged the bridge. However, if we look at who can benefit from the bridge not functioning properly, well, it's one of the two lines of supplies for the Russian army. There's one road that goes along the Azov Sea, which sends supplies to the Russian army in illegally occupied territories of the West and the South. And then there's this bridge that was built illegally, since the occupation of Crimea is illegal since 2014. There's this bridge that was built illegally, which Russia claims is a civilian infrastructure, but de facto is strategic infrastructure, because that's the second line of supply for the Russian army. And if that doesn't function, it doesn't only prevent Russians, hundreds of thousands of Russians who settled in Crimea, to get out of Crimea, it more importantly prevents the Russian Defense Ministry to bring supplies to the southern flank of the front line. And this could prove significant, very significant for the Ukrainian counteroffensive should Russia be cut off from one of his main lines of supplies.
And Ukrainian farmers must be worried about the news also coming out of Moscow today that Russia is pulling out of that grain deal.
Well, there would be consequences for Russia not renewing this deal as is. First of the consequences will be economic consequences for Ukrainian farmers. They've already had a year and a half of very difficult situation to harvest. Because you have to imagine that, for example, on the eastern part of the country, on the southern part of the country, most of the fields are mined, so it's already difficult to harvest. Now, once they harvest, if they manage to do so, if they cannot ship the grain, this is problematic for the farmers, it is problematic for Ukrainian economy, and also it is problematic for all the countries we've talked about before, some countries being located on the African continent who depend on Ukraine to deliver, to export that grain. Now, Vladimir Putin said that for countries most in need, he would deliver free grain, so Russian grain, but that doesn't solve the problem of all the countries which are depending on Ukrainian grain. So it's a loss economically for Ukraine, but most importantly, this could really threaten the fragile balance in some countries which really depend on Ukrainian grain to survive.
Emmanuelle Chaze reporting there from Kiev. Thank you.